Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Adi and today we have our first Regulation F team report, and this is a special one because we are joined by the Portland regional champion, three-time regional champion, Alex Underhill. How you doing?
I'm doing great. We're right back to it. Streamed yesterday, streaming again today. But I mean, Audie and I don't have anything going on.
True. Yeah, and like you said, we are actually live on twitch.tv/TubNationTV. So I don't know if this is going to be a regular thing. Of course, we do Tub takes on here regularly. We do occasionally stream other stuff too, but we want to be able to answer your questions. We know Alex especially knew that everyone was going to have so many questions about how did you actually win using this team of all teams.
Right? Yeah, dude.
All right,
Yep.
yes. So this is I assume everyone knows you who's watching my channel because you're on here literally every week. But so I'm gonna skip the intro part. I do want to ask you. This is the first tournament of a format, and that is something that I think a lot of people really struggle with. So how did you approach team building for a brand new format?
I would say that right away, when you get a new format, people are going to be focusing on the new tools, and I was no exception to that. I wanted to use fun new stuff. I think I have Entei and Raging Bolt are my two new guys, but I mostly wanted to make sure that I was also responding to new stuff. And Entei and Raging Bolt, as we'll get to, were I guess kind of late additions to the team. We started with the top two, boring Pow Knight, because it was a last resort, a very early last resort to what I think was the most annoying Pokemon in building, Landorus Incarnate. Landorus I couldn't beat that Pokemon defensively, and so I decided that it was time to go on the attack.
Yeah. And Pow Knight, of course, Dragonite E-Speed KOs the Landorus, and also Chen Pao is threatening the Landorus until it Terras, and even then, doing a lot of damage. And so I know you explained that, and you had a very different version of this team originally, but of course it did center around, I think, Pow Knight. I don't think any of the other guys were on the team originally, right? I think you have posted this somewhere.
Maybe done. Yeah, just scroll through. It should be in here somewhere. I thought it was. Let's see. Oh yeah. We have the versions, and keep going down.
Yeah, here it is. Pow Knight Meta Instant Shroom X is the first draft, it looks like.
No, no, no. Go down below, and you'll have an image of the
Oh, sick.
timeline.
Cool.
Yeah, it goes from bottom up, and yeah, pretty much the first actual version that I was like, yeah, I could maybe bring this to Portland is Pow Knight, and then I kind of developed this formula that gets somewhat broken with the last version, but the formula of Pow Knight, and then we had the Fire type with Intimidate, Incin here, and then Amoonguss for the Grass type redirection. I had an AV Steel type, which was Metagross, sometimes King Gambit, and a special attacker, which was Landorus Incarnate and eventually Fluttermane. Going through the timeline there, there's a bit of role compression. I lose Intimidate by giving up Incin for Entei, and then I also lose a Steel type by giving up my AV Steel type and just making it Entei. But AV Steel kind of meant I just needed an AV Pokemon that dealt with Fluttermane. Fluttermane is an important Pokemon to deal with when you're running Pow Knight. But yeah, so let me go back and at the top and see where I started besides, just wanting to beat Lando. I just come off of San Antonio, and I was, using Weezing, and Landorus Incarnate was a Pokemon that just gave me a lot of nightmares, no matter what team I was using, because it's so annoying to deal with defensively. And yeah, Power Knight ended up being the thing, and I was trying it out with Metagross. We saw that in the first version, and I thought it was actually very reasonable, very good. Terra Steel, Assault Vest Metagross. Metagross did get one new tool. Besides Terra, it got Heavy Slam. Heavy Slam is very cool. You can just, I mean, Incin's going for Flare Blitz, which is a 120 base power move. Dragonite gets to go for Outrage, which is a 120 base power move. And then Metagross has Heavy Slam, which just has no drawbacks. And that was just so much fun to click with Sword of Rune Boost.
And then I think that you also, the other notable calc there was that you need a Sword of Ruin to threaten to KO Fluttermane if you continue to be AV. And so Metagross doesn't really want to take Shadow Balls even with Assault Vest. And so you either have to defensively Terra. I forget if you do Terra, you still KO Sword of Ruin, right? Or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Or sorry, you needed one multiplier on Metagross to get it with Bullet Punch. I'm pretty sure, unless it's a very bulky Flutter. You needed either Life Orb, which is not on the team, um, Terra, or Sword of Ruin. They're all kind of in that 30% ballpark.
Hmm.
And so any one of those three, I think, was enough to get you there against the frailer Flutters. If it was a very physically defensive one, then you might have needed two. But at that point, Qian Pao is probably going to be able to finish the job if you really need it.
Hmm.
Let's make sure that we respond to questions because that's the whole point of streaming, and so streaming this thing. But Team Rocket Elite asks, how much did you know about Adi's set with Joe going into your own set with Joe? I would actually say less than you thought, but definitely like a lot of help going into the set. I didn't have time to watch Adi's set between the 2 days, and I didn't have time. I just didn't care to. I don't know. I just didn't feel like it. And so I asked Justin Burns, who was at home watching the set and also giving me a lot of advice. I was like, hey, like, you saw Adi's set. What am I supposed to do in this coming up set? And he told me what Joe was doing and what he thought I should be doing. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to stick to that game one and then, go with my gut for their game two or three if it comes to that. A lot of the help that I got from friends this weekend, which I think I did get a good number of help for matchups, a good amount of help for matchups this weekend was just like, okay, what are their what are their tendencies? What are they trying to do in the matchup against us? And learning that was so huge. And obviously, it worked out very well against Joe, and it worked well in other cases, like when I played against Chuppa in the finals, I got to talk to Colin. And I was like, Colin, what is happening with your match against Chuppa? Like, what should I be looking out for? And I got a lot of good tips. So,
Yeah.
uh,
You played my round two opponent, round three as well. You had I know that one I gave
yeah,
you a little more concrete advice on. The Joe set, like yeah, just you knew the mons that he brought. That was the main thing. I don't know if there was a ton more, but I will say Justin messaged me before the set, said if you lead Ogre Pawn, he's going to U-turn the Ogre Pawn. So like play around that, and I did, and immediately got punished for it. So thankfully he gave you better advice than he gave me.
oh man, you're gonna really hear it when Justin
Oh,
watches this video. If he does.
I did disregard some of his other advice, but the so Steve Sisk asked, "What are the EVs and how did you come up with them?" We are going to get to that. And HVAC Goon asks, "What mons gave the team the most trouble?" I think let's get through the team building process and then we can address those questions.
Yeah, those ones are like definitely going to come in the report. Don't worry, we will not miss them. Um, but sorry, you will have to wait. Okay, so we're back to the Metagross version, and I don't think I actually truly gave up on Metagross. I tried to find a good timestamp, but I think I locked in on the version without it. Um, maybe it was before the new year. Okay, okay. Yeah, I did include one message in here, Audie. It's where I'm clicking, but it just says team's pretty lit. Gonna start getting them in game, which kind of shows that it was the first when I was like pretty much locked in. Right, it's a
I
very
know.
close to the bottom,
Oh, is
very
it
close to the
okay?
bottom.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Um, yeah, team's pretty lit. Gonna start getting them in game. That was when I was just like, okay, yeah, I think that's when I finally knew what I was going to be using. And so there was a lot of time between San Antonio and that. And so that was, when I was messing around with Metagross. And okay, let me just scroll back up. Yeah, the second screenshot in the whole list is just a picture of Landorus Incarnate Balance. And hindsight, that team did not do well. I don't know if that's because no, keep going up, keep going up.
This is one.
Um,
Oh, this one.
the
There's a couple of
yes,
versions of it. But yeah.
um,
Oh,
I said this is the most common six I see right now, or strangely bundle, and yeah, I felt that Tornadoes teams were struggling a lot into Chanpao D Knight right now, and it was what I really wanted to beat. It was what I expected. I expected everyone to just take the teams that were doing well in the last series and slap on Ensign. I mean, I was a bit wrong on that take, but I wasn't wrong about Pow Knight being strong. Um, I do like the next screenshot just from Roshan. He says, "Why do you hate fun?" And I said, "Just because fun loses this format. I'm running Pow Knight meta instant stream exit Portland. My hardest strength three sizes this day." That was just on Christmas. Um, but that was like kind of when I knew what archetype I was locking in, which is just Pow Knight. Um, um, this question says this also can wait, but curious how much run you give iterations slash what you test before adapting or moving on. I think that's a good question that I can try to get now. Go to the versions, Adi,
Mhm.
and yeah, like um, I just kind of play until I felt comfortable with the team, and then like it's very easy to like get uh, hung up on losses, and so I would look at every loss that I had and said like was this a real team? Did I play well, or did I mess up significantly, or do I is there a small change I can make to fix things? And no, not the 2%. Of
I
course, you
mean,
go to that one. I forgot about
well,
that.
there's also the Sanvi one. Winning feels good, but do you try complaining to your friends after a loss? We do a lot of
Dude,
that.
that banger from Sanvi, I just had to include because I love it. It's just like it's a fire quote. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I don't know. I used a lot of different variations, different iterations of the team as you've seen here, and Sanvi pretty early on was the inspiration for the second version, which kind of got me moving in the right direction towards the final one. Sanvi was laddering with not Meta Knight, the second team, and not laddering with it, and then eventually like or streaming on ladder and then trying it out in a limitless tournament that he went like 4-1 and dropped. Like he just I didn't have time to finish it. But I was like, okay, this is the same shell that AV steal, redirection, and a special attacker. Incineroar is still there, and I guess I was still considering Incineroar kind of to be a lock on the team. It was good, but I tried that out, and then I was like, okay, there's some things I'm missing. Amoonguss feels very busted. I just kind of like Metagross because he's a cool guy. But then I just kind of in the next 3 or 4, yeah, 3-ish iterations, they're all just kind of blends of Sanvi's team and the bottom team, the Meta Knight and not Meta Knight. Just trying to see, what's the best combination of these. And before I did give up on it and go a bit more in a different direction, it seemed like I was leaning towards Amoonguss, Incineroar, and King Gambit. I think the thing that I liked about Amoonguss versus Ogerpon was it gave the team a fairy resist. Incineroar, when we get back the king of all kings of VGC, it becomes a bit harder to get a fairy resist on your team because your fire type isn't doing it for you. And so it's something to be careful of. King Gambit in this case is also a steel type that's not giving you a fairy resist. And so that's why I felt Amoonguss was necessary, especially on Pow Knight again, which Flutter is kind of number one priority.
And no one listened to my suggestion of running Torracat. Not a single person.
I might
It's
have
a,
mentioned it at some point. Honestly, I believe it.
I've mentioned it multiple times, not necessarily for this team, but yeah, so it looks like and I know we iterated a lot on Instant. I know that Justin, who ended up canceling his trip to Portland, but he really wanted to use a team with like Instant, Shroom, Flutter, right? Those are some of the most powerful mons, and mons that are just reliably very strong. But at some point, we decided to actually switch it up, and make the Insin and Entei. Do you remember when that was, and why we made that decision?
Yeah. So the screenshot of the Japanese team was what started it. It's actually I might have linked the team, and the rental picture is also below. Um, so
I think this one.
it's that one. Yeah. So funnily enough, this is where it's important to mention the darts team. I don't know if we have that link ready, but hopefully people know what I'm talking about. There was a team that did well in a limitless tournament. Um, that's very close to. I don't think we have it in
Yep.
the doc or
Yeah.
anything.
All right.
Honestly, just pull up my team. Pull up the rental of my team, and It'll be the easiest way to describe it. Put that on screen.
Oh, this is the Japanese team. Where's our team? Here it is.
Okay. So this team, sorry, my team. Uh, if you take the Dragonite and
I
make
found
it
it.
a Scarf Landorus, nice. Okay. Yeah, darts did well in this Tommy Tuesday's Hit and Run Christmas Tour. He went 14-0, and a lot of people had been looking at this tournament. It's got basically all the same stuff that I ended up on, but that's not how I got there. Let's go back to the Japanese team. It's not this. It was not this. Notably, the two things that you can see there are the Scarf Landorus and Speed Booster Flutter. This team has again some more similar things. It's like just a Sash Pow, a Dragonite, a Assault Vest Entei, and a Safety Goggles Raging Bolt. But then there's Urshifu and Rillaboom in the middle. I looked at this team and I said, okay, combine them, give me back Ogre Upon Water, and now I have a free slot to get Fluttermane back on the team because I just really liked Fluttermane on the comp. And oh, whoops, I did end up with just like 5 out of the same 6 as Dart's team. But technically, this is what pushed me in that direction. And I tried to play some games with this, and immediately I was just like, wow, this is feeling really good. Entei Ogerpon is kind of just such a strong opener, and same with Ogerpon Flutter. That I had tested on earlier iterations, like in the Sandby team, but Entei Ogre and Ogerpon Flutter are probably the two most common leads I think I was doing with the team, besides occasionally mixing it up with a Pow Knight lead. Entei Ogre and Ogre Flutter are just such strong openers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can talk about, I guess, how the team plays in a little bit. But I guess we should talk about finalizing the team now, because yeah, I think that once we started playing with Entei, Ogerpon, Fluttermane, it was pretty clear that those guys were just so strong on their own, and they worked so well with Pow Knight. And then we did have the last slot to decide. I think, if I recall correctly, Raging Bolt was just like the first guy that we put on, and not the we didn't bring it very often, so we considered some other stuff. I see Orthworm on the screen, but yeah, do you remember how we ended up finalizing the last slot?
Yeah, so there's a screenshot too below the Japanese rentals pick that kind of talks about it, how we felt about Bolt. I'm not going to read it all, but basically we just like talk about like Bolt is just here. The Raging Bolt is just here, and even going into the tournament, I still kind of felt like Raging Bolt was just there. It later does pop off a lot against Chuppa in finals, and it also does very well against Joe in my stream set in day 2. Other than that, I can't think of any like fantastic games. Maybe we'll figure out more ones that it shined in when I looked through my schedule. But those were games that really stood out to me for Bolt impressing me. There was a lot of Pokemon that I thought about replacing it with. And one of those was shown in the team list picture that was just Orthworm. Somebody did well with Orthworm in a tournament. Where did I post the Temptation link? Worm Temptation.
I got that one.
Yeah, and so Giso's team was also very similar. It didn't have the Raging Bolt, but everything else was pretty much in line with what I was trying. Entei makes one small concession, Stomping Tantrum, to Bulldoze to have better synergy with Orthworm. And the Dragonite set is drastically different. No longer Choice Band, but Clear Amulet, Terra Flying, Terra Blast with Dragon Dance. And for people that might remember last season in Regulation C, I had a top 4 run at a regional with Orthworm Dragonite, and it was something I was very familiar with, something that I loved. It was probably like my favorite team I ran last year, aside from Weezing. And I was just like, okay, I want to get back in. Like, this is awesome. I played some games with it, and the games were working. It wasn't bad in any sense. Earthworm was closing out some games in strong ways. But this was actually just me getting, I don't know, like, what's the best word to say? But like, my friends were keeping me in check because they were like, okay, well, I'm not really interested in the Earthworm version. Audie was not interested. Chuppa was not interested. And I was like, I'll be normal. Okay, fine. We'll use Raging Bolt. And we kept playing with Raging Bolt, and it was like, yeah, it just didn't come that often. But it wasn't that bad. It's just, yeah. Yeah, I think there we go. Look at Chuffa. And, been liking Ogerpon and Entei a good deal. They're pretty real. And then Worm is fun. Could easily fall back to Bolt or maybe even Shroom. And then, yeah, I'm just, like, still considering the Instant Amoonguss version, but Chuppa's just, like, not the Worm. Yeah, that's basically the short way of summarizing that, like, yeah, no, people did not want me to use the Worm. And, maybe they were right. Raging Bolt did all right.
I think
Um,
my take on that is that Raging Bolt was really good into this again, like you said, the two teams that you brought it against. I think the two teams that I really brought it against too were the Glimdozo team and then the Joe team that had an Amoonguss on it, and we had Safety Goggles Bolt. And Worm doesn't seem like it's very helpful into either of those guys. It's really good
no,
into stuff like Landorus, but the idea was that we were supposed to be already pretty good into Landorus, and then as it turned out, Landorus did really fall off. So I am pretty happy that we ended up talking you out of it.
yeah. It does seem like it wasn't doing much besides just being fun. Um, and yeah. So let me double check. So Raging Bolt can be replaced. I'd say after the tournament, maybe not. If you're trying to run the team one for one, I think maybe all the six Pokemon need to be there. Uh, as just a quick precursor or preview of what I'm going to end up saying later is I don't think the team has a very long shelf life just after this tournament in general, and that I think it's going to need major changes going forward. But yeah, um, let me see. This Nick, you asked earlier. My new question though is, how do you figure out the EVs you want and when testing to make EVs you want when testing to make a team for an event?
That
Um,
sounds like a good
yeah,
question to
so
answer right now as we transition from the six Pokemon that we have to the EV spreads and movesets, right?
yeah. So this was actually this is something that I've tried doing in the past like couple of years. I do these things called red lines, and I thought it'd be cool to show off one here. I just got it from when I used to work as a electrical engineer, working on like oil and gas sites. But I would red line drawings, and so I was like, all right, what if I just like basically, you're just taking a digital red pen and highlighting all the things that need fixing and changes. And so I took what the team was at the time and just put red boxes around everything that I want to make a talking point about, and then put the text there. Um, and so, I talk about what the what things I'm considering changing, or how heavy I am considering doing something different. Like even in this picture, Entei is currently normal Terra. I have it highlighted there, and I said grass is solid defensively. Um, and we have like an EV spread, assault vest. I was even considering trying out Life Orb Entei with Speed Booster Flutter. A lot of the changes will relate to each other. And you can see Raging Bolt itself is boxed in, indicating like, yeah, there are other Pokemon that could maybe be replacing this. Um, and yeah, so this kind of just shows that there was a lot of perfecting to be done on the team, even though we had the final six. And let's go ahead and see if I can jog my memory towards what the final paste actually
Yeah,
has for EVs. So
I'm
let's
looking
go.
over this and I see a lot of different changes. But do you remember what day we had this on? I feel like it was January 1st.
I would believe it. I would believe this was January 1st, because that was, well, I would think after it was maybe early in January 1st, and then late night I said, all right, I'm going to get the team in game. Whenever that screenshot was, I said I was getting the team in game on January 1st. The EVs were probably finalized, because otherwise I wouldn't be bothering, starting to train my Pokemon.
So this is what we ended up on. I don't have a great way to put them next to each other, but I can, I guess.
Oh, we don't need the old one. No,
Okay.
we don't need the old one. That's fine. Okay. So yeah, this also just has like all of my or maybe this base doesn't. Oh no, I think it does have the levels. That's not really important. Don't get caught up on the levels. And it also has my nicknames, which is a reference to the game, the finals. Okay. So Dragonite actually ended up sticking with the original spread. I made some things better, like trying to live opposing Dragonite E speed a better role or something, but I'm pretty sure it was just a bunch of speed creep while also still managing to live um, the extreme speed in the mirror. And
The Dragonite hits 114 speed, right?
yeah, 114 speed, which isn't necessarily related to any type of speed control, but more so related to other people parking at relevant numbers for speed control. The team doesn't have any speed control whatsoever, but it's important to respect other people that maybe people see E speed spam and don't bother bringing their tailwind, but they might have a Rillaboom that's like somewhere between 110 and 113, or 100, 105 is where it starts, right? I think so. It might be nice to get off an aerial ace into a Rillaboom before it attacks. It might be able to. It might be nice to get your extreme speed off before the opposing Dragonite. And so it kind of just has some general speed creep, and then the rest is in bulk. Not a ton to say about the spread, but I do know that it ended up it lives like Specs Dazzling Gleam from Timid Flutter, and then it also lives like other E speeds from other Dragonite. The Chen Pao spread, we obviously really only need to talk about the nature. Enough people have told me about Chen Pao having 4 defense helps into Scarf or Shifu Surging Strikes, so that's I think where the 4 goes, as opposed to just HP or special defense. And then Jolly, I went with Jolly. That was actually in the red lines where I just said Jolly gives me more confidence. I also very much like modest 252 Flutter, and this is something Adi agreed with, and he says that it kind of forces you into Jolly Pow because having your Pow and Flutter speed tie is a good way to have unpredictable endgames that you can't really rely on. And so, um, yeah, we ended up going with Jolly, which I think was the right call. I faced a number of Adamant Pow where I got to confidently Sucker Punch them or have a more comfortable endgame because of it.
And also, you faced Dozo in finals where you wouldn't have outspeed the Dozo with Chen Pao if you didn't have Jolly.
That's true. That's true.
Um,
Um,
the other thing that you had redlined was the Terra type because we considered Stellar Terra Chen Pao. So why did you end up running with Ghost?
Yeah, Ghost is just so much more important for the mirror. You have the occasional chance to dodge Fake Out, but I think mostly it was nice to be able to dodge extreme speeds. Genpao is a very good Pokemon into opposing Dragonite. You can hit it with a Ice Spinner or Sacred Sword if it's a normal type or a Dragon Flying type, and without that, the Dragonite can do some serious damage. Opposing Dragonite Chien-Pao teams are going to be able to are going to be built to beat Flutter, and every time I faced a Stellar Chien-Pao, like no offense, I was just kind of like laughing to myself. I'm like, all right, this is going to be significantly easier than what I expected because even though Chien-Pao gets a lot of mileage out of Stellar, it's got 3 attacking moves, and those are probably the best Pokemon to be trying Stellar on. I still think it Ghost is significantly better. And while it's not Tub takes, but I'm still going to give my take here. I do think Stellar's just bad. There's going to be some fringe cases for it. I think Stellar is bad. Um, so don't expect to see it on any of my teams anytime soon.
I agree.
Uh,
I agree completely.
okay, so Fluttermane, I've run this spread exactly before, and I don't know. I mean, you might catch me running it again. But the spread is very simple. This is maxed modest. I did not like choice specs flutter, and I did not like booster speed flutter because they just lack damage or lack flexibility. Um, the team respects fake out very heavily. You have protect on every Pokemon that isn't inner focus, and then 2 inner focus Pokemon that can't protect. But I'm never going to lose a turn to fake out, whether it's protecting at the wrong time. I guess I could lose it to protecting at the wrong time, but what I'm trying to say is I never want to have to, like, you know, just deal with fake out and the other Pokemon getting off a big hit if I get caught out. And so Specs was not the option, and then speed, I don't know. The Darts team had speed, but it didn't have extreme speed Dragonite. I have extreme speed Dragonite, which makes me a lot more comfortable not having any type of speed control. And so Flutter being 252 speed modest is just another good confidence booster for me. If I see the opposing Flutter gets a special attack boost, I'm like, all right, well, win the speed tie then. I'm max speed. I know that, and so at the worst I have a 50-50. Otherwise I'm always faster and I'm shadow balling you. And that is like kind of the cool thing about this Flutter is that you can just click Shadow Ball into the opposing Flutter, and if they don't have any type of redirection, they have to Terra to take that, Shadow Ball comfortably, or they have to be very bulky to live it. And if they Terra, now they get hit by E Speed. And so that's why I think Flutter is still a very important Pokemon to have on your team, even just for the mirror, is that you get to disrespectfully click Shadow Ball, not caring if they Terra or not, because once they Terra, then Dragonite can actually beat Fluttermane.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I know Chuppa actually was saying that we should run. I think the original version that Chuppa had put the spread on had a much bulkier one. But I think, again, if you can force Flutter Mains to. First off, being the faster Flutter Main is crazy, crazy important when Flutter Main's the fastest, the best Pokemon in the format, the number one usage Pokemon in the format, with a team like ours where you really do want to force it to Terra or get rid of it. But then, but then also, to answer another question about the EV spread about 4 HP, I was actually almost running something that had a slightly different spread with a 116.20, I think was my spread. And I switched to Alex's spread the night before the tournament because the most important thing that you can do with Fluttermane is live an attack from Jolly Chenpao. Live a Jolly Ice Spinner. It is a 12% roll to KO, but knowing that you almost always live that is far more important than any sort of special bulk that you can give it. And yeah, there are situations where you really like to have a better like Moonblast roll from or Shadow Ball roll from like Timid Fluttermane, sure, but living the living the Chenpao Ice Spinner with Fluttermane, even if they're faster, is so important. And you saw the like way that the Chenpao Fluttermane interactions and how important those were. I think in Colin's set and in your set in finals against Choppa.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's a very yeah. I just like being able to take attacks from Qianpao. And when it comes to Timid Flutter, taking attacks from it, I am very comfortable. Having my Fluttermane scout out. Are they locking into Shadow Ball? Are they locking into Moonblast and Terra Fairy? Again, if they do Terra Fairy, then they're weak to Extreme Speed. But if they locked into Shadow Ball, then my Ogerpon is very comfortable just redirecting the Shadow Ball or what have you. Um, Also, I know that you guys can't hear us if there is an ad break, but sorry, there's two ways around the ad break, and that's watch this on YouTube when it comes out tomorrow, or subscribe. Unfortunate. Uh, that's just how it is with Twitch. Anyways, that's probably all I want to explain on the Fluttermane. And then, yeah, I was actually joking about this with Joe on stream. I was like, oh no, don't confuse my Fluttermane, don't foul play it. Like, I don't have perfect attack IVs because right now in the current metagame, you don't need perfect attack IVs on your Pokemon. And so I think Raging Bolt is locked in on all 20s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. And then my Fluttermane, it's just the one I happened to catch was 12 attack, so I just didn't care. So yeah, no foul play, no anything else that you need to worry about. Anyways, that's all I want to say about that one. And then for Entei, I wish I had the calcs prepped ahead of time, but I do remember what Entei was supposed to be doing. Um, it's supposed to live Dragonite Choice Band Extreme Speed with all the multipliers, including Sword of Ruin and Terra Normal. Um, it lives the extreme speed 15 out of 16 times, so you either die to the 1 in 16 roll or a crit. I did actually get hit by the 1 in 16 roll once in day 2, which was a heart stopper. I managed to win the game despite it in game 3 in a tough matchup, but I was just like, wait a minute. Did I mess up my spread? No, I just got 1 in 16. Then the special defense lets it live. What is it? It lets it live Timid, Landorus, Earth Power. I think the same amount of times, 15 in 16, or yeah, 15 and 16. Oh, Dane does bring up a good point. Strength Sap Bramble. I forgot about
Hey,
it.
if the Bramble Gas is clicking Strength Sap into my Fluttermane, I feel like I'm winning anyways.
Sinistra, let's go. Um, Man, so true. Okay, so then the Dragonite or the Entei has 156 speed, which puts it at a speed stat of 140. This speed creeps Pokemon like Modest Glamora, Modest Goldengo, I guess Smeargle. Um, what else? That's probably about it. It's speed creeping on that number. Like it's not exactly one over the numbers, except maybe Smeargle. I think Smeargle's 139. Um, but it was not a Pokemon that I was expecting to be. I should have expected Smeargle to be annoying. There's definitely some Smeargle enthusiasts that were going to be using it at the tournament. I didn't end up playing any against any Smeargle, so. And Entei's speed stat ties into the speed stat of Ogerpon. Ogerpon is 1 speed point faster, which I think is nice to have on a team. The idea having two Pokemon that are one speed point apart. We have that twice on the team. Raging Bolt is the last Pokemon we're going to talk about, but it is one speed point faster than Dragonite, and Ogerpon is one speed point faster than Entei. They're Pokemon that are going to be wanting to operate around the same speed tier anyways. You do separate them so they don't speed tie, but they can speed check for each other. So if you're like, oh, my Raging Bolt managed to get off a Thunderbolt before that Rillaboom you turned out, my Dragonite will also be able to get off an Aerial Ace into that Rillaboom before it moves.
All right.
Similar things for, my Entei got outsped by the opposing Ogerpon Water and got Ivy Cudgeled. Ouch. But that means that it's going to probably outspeed my Ogerpon. Maybe not for sure. Maybe it speed ties it, but most likely their Ogerpon is going to be faster than my Ogerpon.
I'm going to shell for 1 second. If you're a channel member on my YouTube channel, you get access to this, which is me me using the Pokemon Showdown Chaos stats and seeing exactly what percentage of each Pokemon is of which speed. So this is the overall like literal speed tiers. And so if you want, and so a lot of our speed numbers are just speed creeping 1 point faster than what a majority of people were hitting with their Pokemon, at least considering how many other EVs we could allocate, right? 1 point faster than a lot of people were doing. And if you want access to that, this got to become a channel member. Only way. But yeah, that's I think we saw. So to give you a more concrete example, yeah, Raging Bolt was 115 speed. A lot of Rillaboom stop at 114 speed. Was what we noticed. A lot of Dragonite stop at 114 speed. Outspeeding those guys, pretty cool. A lot of Raging Bolt also stop at 114 speed, so we speed crept that guy. And then same with like you said, the Entei and Ogerpon were speed creeping. A lot of other Entei and Ogerpon that like to hit 138, 139, 140, and Ogerpon specifically outspeeding Entei is really really nice. So we definitely tried to speed creep that one.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of no, it's not top takes. This is a team report. Don't get it mixed up. How's the Volcarona matchup? That's a funny question because I don't. I'm gonna have to go look at how well Volcarona did at the tournament if anybody is still running it. No offense. Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, it's probably fine. I think Volcarona usually isn't going to opt into a Terra that resists extreme speed, and so at any point in the game, even if it gets up some quiver dances, it's still not going to like a sort of ruin Terra normal extreme speed, and it also probably doesn't like Entei. Assault Vest Entei is probably going to be very annoying for it if it's clicking Snarl or Sacred Fire or Extreme Speed as well. Okay, so yeah, I talked about the Entei. Then it's a tax investment, by the way. On the Entei is just a jump point. 116 is a jump point. You get two stats for like 8 EVs at that spot. If you don't know what jump points are, I'm not explaining them here. Sorry, you're gonna have to go look up how to make EV spreads.
Do you want to
But
talk about Trailblaze?
we can. Did I include it in the screenshots at all? I feel like I might have.
Mm-hmm. It's in here.
Yes, it's yeah, towards the bottom. Okay, Snarl is probably better, but I'm thinking about Trailblaze again. So we are Terra Grass, which means Trailblaze, which is a what? What is the base power of Trailblaze? Anybody know? I don't even know. Let's go check Showdown. DT.
50? I think it's 50.
I maybe.
It gets the base power boost, so it's lower than 60.
Yes, it's 50. Okay. So it's 50 base power, which means that because it's not a multi-hit or priority move, when you Terra Grass, it would get bumped to 60 and then also get the 1.5 boost from Terra. Not exactly the reason to run Trailblaze, but it's a cool thing that on top of it allows you to 2-tap Flutter in a very creative way. You can hit the Flutter main with a Trailblaze and then follow it up with a Sacred Fire to KO it, because most Flutter are going to be able to withstand a single Sacred Fire. But Chuppa did manage to talk me out of that one and was like, okay, but what if you just like hit their Flutter for, a very pathetic 30% with your Trailblaze, and then they switch out, and you're now just like, a fast Entei, but you only did a little bit of damage to the Flutter when you could have, made much more significant progress by just hitting it with a Sacred Fire. And I was like, you know what? That's a good point. And so it seemed like a lot of fun, but I don't think it would have paid off very well. And I think Snarl did pretty all right for me. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are a couple matchups, Psy Spam and Rain, where we looked at Snarl and said these are probably too important to drop.
Yes, yeah. The Indeedee Iron Crown, as well as like Indeedee Hatterene, they're not gonna like Snarl. Blood Moon was another Pokemon that I think Snarl helps a bit against. Um, in the Blood Moon matchups, they're often paired with Fari Giraffe, but I was usually just like spamming Snarl and just like, please just switch to the Blood Moon this turn. I need that thing snarled ASAP. Like if it gets a free switch, I'm gonna lose. And so I just like click Snarl, hoping to catch it at any point because well, if it's at -1, it's much more approachable. But okay, so let's finish up talking about EV spreads. The Ogerpon was a bit of speed creep. It also lives Dragonite's extreme speed, I believe, 15 out of 16 times. I don't know why all my calcs were just benchmarks for the mirror, but like I don't know, it's giving me 2015 vibes where it's like there's like one physical attack you need to leave and one special attack you need to live, and then you're like set. Specs Hydreigon, Draco Meteor, and Kang Double Edge, and if you could live both of those, your Pokemon's so tanky. Uh, yeah, anyways, we have small optimizations on the Ogerpon. We talked about the speed set already. The Ogerpon has 12 Spadef. It was actually going to be just 4, but it turns out if you give your Ogerpon 4 Spadef, it does not. It loses a point. It wastes a point. You get 1 point extra when you Terra and get the +1 Spadef if you are 12. So 12 Ogerpon's a little bit better. 12 Spadef, and then the attack is also a jump point. 76 Adamant is a jump point for Ogerpon. Everything else is just kind of I already mentioned. Okay. Lastly, we have the Raging Bolt. Its special attack is another jump point. We already talked about the speed stat, creeping, Rillaboom, and all those guys. And the defensive calc for this spread was living an Ice Spinner from Adamant Chenpao, which meant that you could live Jolly Icicle Crash or live Adamant Icicle Crash about 50% of the time, I believe. Plus, I guess dodge it. Anyways, that's pretty much it for all of the EV spreads. If there's anything that you guys don't understand about the EV spreads, feel free to ask questions now before we move on and talk about some of the other things.
With regards to Raging Bolt, there were two other things that are probably worth noting. The first is that Colin did use basically the same team, but he ran, I think, a slightly different EV spread. He said he had comfort with the different EV spread. He also ran Life Orb instead of Safety Goggles, and I think, like we mentioned,
And
Goggles.
Terra
And Terra Grass, right. Which is, of course, a little more mandatory if you don't have the Goggles. But I think the Goggles definitely came up in the Amoonguss matchups, and I don't think it ever came up otherwise, right? I don't know what you thought about Goggles.
Oh, Goggles was fine. Yeah, it did very well in my matchup against Joe, and so that's all I really needed. Everything else was just fine. I think that Life Orb has its pros and cons. You saw that in Colin's match against Chuppa, his Raging Bolt was able to threaten a lot more damage and get a lot more range out of its Thunderclaps and so on. But the Life Orb does chip away at it, and so just kind of having the lack of that, even like those Safety Goggles as a non-item, it does mean that my Bolt is going to be bulkier. And so it's able to just survive the game a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Somebody asked, would you have liked less speed and more bulk on Bolt? How did you decide on the Terra for Bolt? That's a good question. The second one, the Terra on the Bolt, because it was Terra Electric until we tested like one matchup on like Tuesday or something before the tournament, where it was like, okay, if we can actually have a defensive Terra with a solid resist, water. The Pokemon becomes a lot more comfortable. I don't remember exactly what the matchup was. It wasn't like Dozo or anything. It was actually some Pokemon in Psy Spam, but I don't remember what it was. Maybe it wasn't even Psy Spam. I don't know. But the defensive Terra was helpful. And honestly, the main thing that it did end up being strong into was Dozo. It's also strong into Chenpao. Getting to resist Ice Spinner is really cool. Colin was Terra Grass, which means you are always weak to Ice, Terra or no Terra, and that is something that is a bit risky. It has its ups and downs. Got to be careful about it. If I were to add, say, a set or two to the calc, should I attribute it to Alex? Dude, Lexicon's Iapapa Arcanine's got to make its return. Yeah. Get him in there. Lexicon's Chenpao spread? No, I think we probably picked some different Pokemon. Anyways, would you have liked to have
Hmm.
add less speed and more bulk? No, I think that the speed and bulk were the perfect sweet spot. Um, okay, so
Right.
yeah, other things about the team. The Bolt is not Calm Mind. I think Calm Mind's very bad. Other set choices. The four moves on Dragonite felt right. I could maybe have gotten Aqua Jet in there over. I don't know. I clicked every move at least once, and it was good. I like Ice Spinner a lot on Chen Pao D Knight because it's important to be able to beat Side Spam, and so I don't think Crash is the right call there, even though Helmet is annoying. And every other move is kind of like pretty standard for the Pokemon. Funny to note, the team has exactly one support move, if you don't count Snarl as kind of also just being a support move. It's all attacks and protect and follow me. Follow me is the one support move.
So yeah, we had a question that was, did you miss having slow Ogerpon with no speed control?
Um, no, I think the Ogerpon spread and the Entei spread felt very good. I think there are certain Pokemon that I can maybe talk about in like a matchup section that would maybe pressure me to go faster. Mainly looking at Glimora. Timid Glimora was a very annoying Pokemon. The team has you can count it 3 rock weaknesses and 0 resists, and so. Chenpao, by the way, being a Sash Pokemon, don't look at the team and like get scared about like counting weaknesses when you have a Sash Pokemon. Sash Pokemon don't count. Like I have like 3 fairy weaknesses. No, I have 2. Don't kid yourself. If Chenpao was a pure Ice type, it would still be weak to Dazzling Gleam from Flutter. So, you know, Sash Pokemon don't count defensively. But I don't remember what to say before that. Please, 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 please.
Oh, we took. You said that we didn't have a ton of defensive switches, and I guess the Ogerpon could have been Jolly to outspeed Glamora to maybe make that matchup a little better.
Yes, that was it. That was it. So yeah, I think Entei and Ogerpon could be significantly sped up. I would probably settle for faster than Modest Landorus, which is like 153. So you'd have to go all the way up to like 154, 155, and it might be a contested speed stat. So I don't even know if you're speed creeping. It required a lot of EVs, and so I was much more comfortable playing around it. And so that's just where I ended up. Um, Gavin, we did actually mention it already. You said, I don't know if you talked about it already, but Stellar versus Ghost and Chenpai. I learned what Stellar was yesterday. That shit seems crazy. I think Stellar seems very bad. Sorry to say. And Ghost is so important for the mirror. Not only dodging like the Sacred Sword from opposing Qianpao, but the E speeds. Occasionally dodging fake outs, cool. Yeah, Stellar does allow you to get some serious reach, and I did test it on this team. But yeah, I think Ghost is just significantly better. Why is outspeeding Rillaboom with Raging Bolt important? It was actually kind of important for like having a speed check for the Dragonite. Dragonite maybe wants to Aerial Ace. Maybe you get into a late game where the Rillaboom is threatening to Woodhammer knock out your Dragonite because it's Terra Normal and you want to, but Extreme Speed's not going to get the KO. Aerial Ice would. You're going to start to wonder, am I faster or not? And you learned earlier in the game that your Raging Bolt is faster than the Rillaboom, so you know that. It's nice to have Pokemon checking for each other, even if it's not exactly the Pokemon that's dealing with it the best. I mean, Rillaboom doesn't exactly hit Bolt for a lot of damage either, and so being able to Draco KO it before, say, it hits your Ogerpon could be useful. Um,
Also,
you know,
Thunderclap will fail if it goes after Grassy Glide, and it's really nice to know that you can do that pretty safely, right?
mhm.
Especially if they're at low health, especially if you Terra Water, right? You definitely want to guarantee that you go faster there. But then, yeah, like you said, you do Draco Meteor the guy a decent amount of time, and it's nice to know that you're not going to get high horsepowered or wood hammered before you Draco Meteor to into Rillaboom. I think we our EV spread is 1 point short of a leftovers recovery number,
Yes.
which funnily enough I think worked in our favor because it means it also takes one less point of toxic chip. Uh, But
Oh.
yeah, we were worried about taking one less point of grassy terrain recovery, and we decided that comes up so infrequently, and we'd rather just be faster than the Rillaboom anyways.
Hmm. That was actually we were just like the EV finessing was getting a little too intense, and I was like, this is whatever. I don't care about having one more HP from grassy terrain. So Mufasa Jones asks, how do you decide what mons to lead slash bring burst most of the meta cores? What do you look for? I'll be honest, I can kind of talk about that with playing the team. And I did mention earlier that my most common leads were probably like Ogerpon Entei and Ogerpon Fluttermane. But aside from that, it's probably gonna that is like an important skill that I think everybody is working towards is to like focusing on what you want to end game with. In my team, the most basic would probably be like end gaming with Chen Pao D Knight, but overall, that's a skill that if you're really looking to improve on it, you're probably gonna have to seek out coaching, from like some of the top coaches like Jody, Chuppa, Joe, whoever. But yeah, for this team, I was usually leading Entei and Ogre or Ogre and Flutter with back Pao Knight and going from there. I apologize if this has been asked a lot, but Dozotatsu, Chen Pao, Dozotatsu, Dragon Knight have been popping up a lot on the ladder the last few days. How does this team deal with that? I played it in the finals. That might that might be a way to.
You should watch you should watch the set where both Chuppa played against Colin and Alex played against Chuppa. I think that those are probably pretty good ways to get an idea of that. I know you played. I mean, we could talk about your run too, but you played a couple. You played a couple different Glimdozos over the course of your run, so you've got a lot of experience with it.
Yeah. I played just the two, the one that Adi played against and Chuppa, both people that played against my proteges, if you will. Um, Let me make sure that there's nothing else in the process I wanted to talk about, and then we'll get there. Let's see. We talked about the team building process. We talked about, or maybe we talked about the EV spreads. Maybe we'll get into matchups in a sec. Let me check if there's any other pictures that I thought were important part of the process that I skipped.
With regards to
Um,
game plans, like you said, the Flutter Ogerpon Entei combination was so strong. If I wasn't bringing Pow Knight, like the combination of those two in back, I was usually bringing those three in some combination, usually with Ogerpon and lead. This team does not have a ton of defensive switches. Raging Bolt is sometimes a defensive switch. There's a lot of immunities that you can get a switch into, right? Like I can switch my Chen Pao into a psychic type move, but I can't switch into anything else basically. And so and Dragonite actually does have some defensive switches, so that's a guy that you want to bring in back and have a chance to switch in. But I'm not kidding when I say that my round 8 opponent, I literally brought Fluttermane, Entei, Ogerpon. I think I led Fluttermane, Ogerpon with Entei and back, and did not reveal my fourth Mon in both games. Like that combination of three Pokemon, even ignoring the rest of the team, was just so strong. As even as a secondary mode, but also they work so well with Pow Knight because if you ever lose one of them, you just bring in the Pow Knight mode and just you've chipped everything so low that usually you're just taking a bunch of KOs with priority moves. So it's like that's at least how I was trying to play the team, was get things into range of my priority attacks and then KO them with my priority attacks.
Yeah, you have two physical fire, water, grass Pokemon. That you condensed fire, water, grass into two Pokemon with Ogerpon and Entei. They're both physical, so they pair well with Qian Pao. And they have just such a range of supporting moves. Follow me, and also the Ogerpon can Terra at any point and become the threat itself, to become even bulkier. Bit of both. Entei just has a move for every situation. Sacred Fire, good for dealing with physical ones. Physical Pokemon, Snarl, good for special. So there's just so much synergy. I don't know. It felt so strong to bring those Pokemon in most every game. And then Chen Pao is just the king of damage trades. Being Sash in the back, like I think you can bring. I probably brought the Pokemon every game. I would not be surprised. Because you get to the end game and it's got a priority move. It's faster than you. It can take 2 hits. What are you going to do? The Pokemon's got solid coverage too. There's a lot of Pokemon that will find themselves uncomfortable against Jolly Chen Pao in an endgame. Um, so, um, let's see. How would you deal with a lead of Hatterene and DD without allowing it to set up Trick Room? I think the team doesn't get out of Trick Room that easily, but I think you would probably have to let Trick Room go up. And the if we're talking about the size spam matchup, the team has tools for it. You have Ice Spinner, you have Snarl, and you have Terra Water on Ogerpon, as well as most every Pokemon having Protect if you need to stall out a turn of Trick Room. Um,
Mhm.
and so those are the main things that I think I would be trying to use to deal with Trick Room. But this is not a team that is going to always 100% of the time be able to stop a Trick Room setup. Hatterene and Indeedee is probably going to be getting it up. Hatterene Gallade, Hatterene, or no, Indeedee Gallade or Indeedee Armarouge or whatever have you.
And Colin did play
Um,
that in both in the last round of Swiss and in top eight. The last round of Swiss was streamed. The top eight was not, I believe. So if you want to go watch
mhm.
how Colin played against it, obviously he made some changes going into top eight that helped him win a little more easily. But that is a place where you can watch it. But yeah, just to echo what Alex said, the way that you beat Indeedee Hatteran is not stop them from getting Trick Room up. You can do that, great. But the way that you beat it is you manage to stall out Trick Room, and the way you do that is by not taking a KO and by forcing them
Mhm.
to not get their free. If they can get a free switch in and their DD goes down, and they have Hatteran plus like Torkoal or Hatteran plus another Murdery Mon on the field, they're probably winning the game if they have enough Trick Room turns. And so Snarl is really, really good into that. Just like clicking double protect is really good into that, forcing them to try to respect. Do you just spit out damage, or do you try to play passively? And having them try to play those mind games, it is a mind gaming matchup a lot of times, but I think it's very manageable, and we have a lot of tools, like you said.
Yeah, yeah. That's the other thing is if you can't play it, too safe. Like it is a bit of a risky matchup, and honestly, you can't play anything too safe with this team. You have to be comfortable making calls. But if they're bringing in a physical attacker in Trick Room, I'm trying to think of a good example. I'm just going to mention Iron Hands, even though that Pokemon's not the most common right now. But if they're trying to pivot in a physical attacker, throw a Sacred Fire in there, and then they have to risk that at any point a Sacred Fire is going to come out and maybe burn that Pokemon and kind of take it out of the game. When Iron Hand switches in on a Sacred Fire and gets burned, it's no longer a Pokemon. The Torkoal doesn't want to just switch in because I'm clicking Snarl almost every turn into the Indeedee and Hatterene, and so you just got to make sure that you're not letting them get free switches into the strong Pokemon without them taking a heavy compensation like a -1 from Snarl or what have you. Um, yeah, and so there might be some matchups that I didn't play against, but I think the easiest way to talk about matchups and what I did is to go through the schedule. And so let's do that now. And I'm not gonna do a full war story. Like, all right,
Thank you.
game one against Jonathan Chembakar. I led with Ogerpon Fluttermane, and he led with no. Um, but but yeah, in the first round, it was 3 games, and it was very competitive because it was a choice band Entei, and so that's something to watch out for. But as we mentioned earlier, with our EV spreads, everything lives like basically choice band Dragonite's extreme speed, so everything could live Entei's extreme speed because it's a bit weaker than Dragonite. And then other than that, this team is built very much like the teams that I was targeting. I was looking to beat Tailwind Torn teams by clicking extreme speed as much as I could, and so that's how that went. Um, and I would say that the second round wasn't too. Oh no, I'm looking at this person's schedule, not. Oh, the second round was pretty similar. Yeah, Whimsicott, not a great Pokemon if I'm being honest, but yeah, some similar things here. This team has some slow options. I don't remember how if they ended up bringing a Mungus or not, but let's talk about round three. Round three is where things start to get interesting. Funnily enough, Adi, I didn't get to talk to him before the matchup about if I was playing literally the guy, but Adi had described his match in round two against Jose enough that I sat down and was like, "Oh, this has got to be Adi's round two opponent."
That's a nice way of
Um,
saying that I complained a lot about this matchup. I got
Adi told me what was happening, and I'll be honest, the something that was very important for both my prep process with running Pow Night and during the tournament was when I talked to somebody that played my opponent before. We talk about open team sheets making like scouting dead. You don't have to like ask like people like anything besides like, oh, what booster energy stat does it boost? Um, I learned a lot about play style, and so that's not even something that you can really avoid revealing. I do think that the top players do a good amount of varying their play style, and that's something that I always strive to do. Is not just be predictable every turn, but also not make aggressive plays every turn. Play it safe, play it crazy sometimes, and Yeah, Adi had told me that this person was playing rather predictably, and I kind of just made comfortable plays, expecting them to stick to the level one option, and was able to come out on top. I think 2-0 with Adi's advice or complaining, whatever you want to call it. And so, um, yeah, round three, I played against
Round four.
Joshua Dank. Round four, and I'll be honest. You're seeing my first L here. We talk about the classic one to luck, one to matchup. I got that. This is the one to luck. Sorry, Joshua, but turn one Fisher from the Torkoal onto my Entei in game one. Turn one, game one Fisher. I was just like, so that just happened. Um, and so, um, yeah, I wasn't really sweating it. I was like, okay, let's just do the same game plan, game two, and we'll make it work. And game two, I won pretty convincingly. Game three, he also tried to switch things up again, and what was it? The eject pack Torkoal, as you can see. I've lost the team. Here we go. I'm clicking the wrong link. Eject pack Torkoal dodged Snarl, and so I was like, oh, okay. If I'm going to get turn one Fissured, and I'm also going to get turn one Snarl missing onto the eject pack Torkoal, like, sure. Um, those were some very unfortunate things to happen. But I do think that the non-typical Terra steal on Walking Wake did make things a bit harder. Meant that my Dragonite couldn't as easily just take care of it. And so there were some Pokemon that I definitely needed to watch out for in this matchup. And yeah, my two losses in the whole tournament are to Torkoal. I guess Torkoal's the counter if you guys are looking for the counter. Um, yeah, I got a couple of where is Vern redemptions. I think Vern is in the bedroom, so unfortunately I can't show him off right now. Okay. Um, Next up, Michael Wagner with a pretty scary team. But once again, this is where I learned playstyle. I had talked to Carson before the match, and Carson had told me, hey, this guy played very predictably and very safe every turn. Um, he led off with Torn Regidrago, and he said he did the same thing against Carson and just went for Protect Tailwind. Against me, Protect Tailwind. And so I just kind of knew that my opponent was going to make the play that I most expected to happen every turn and took advantage of that. And I think that was something that I forgot to delve into when I talked about the matchup against Jose when I was talking about my process, is that um, taking advantage of player tendencies is something I did not, even until this tournament in my career, realize could be so strong. Um, we saw on my stream games, I got like Rajan said like 8 out of 10 50-50s right. And it's like, well, at a certain point, are they 50-50s? My two inspirations for people that, quote, get the 50-50s right are Jody and Emilio. Um, their player Emilio does it more in like a cold calculated, like, I've been in this situation 1,000 times from spamming ladder, and so 70% of people protect their Ogerpon here, and I'm going to double the other slot. And then it's also a like, okay, I'm going to double the other slot, and if they don't protect the Ogerpon, things are going to still work out in my favor, even if I get this quote 50-50 wrong. It's a heavily weighted one or something, um, and yeah, so those maybe happen a bit more often, but sometimes they can be hard to find. Jody is another inspiration. Jody's in the my favorite way to describe it. Oh, Vern actually is here now. Oh, because Gina brought him. I thought he actually jumped up himself. I was like, what? That's such crazy timing. So Jody is much more. Jody looks at the fit you're wearing. He smells the deodorant that you've put on and is like, oh yeah, you're switching out Insta in this turn, and that I don't know if I'm that level yet. I don't think I could do that. But those are my true my two goats
Okay.
of getting calls right,
Can
and
I?
I think I was a goat of getting calls right at this tournament. No, not to sound cocky or anything.
I'm gonna piss off Justin once again and talk about his secret, which is he looks up people's elos before the game and makes his plays based on that.
I mean, looking at people's elos before the game is not that dissimilar from me learning, from somebody who played him before. Like, yeah, this guy is a newer player. and they are somebody that's going to be playing very level 1 very predictably. Whereas like God, there's the stupid word that everyone in Tub always uses when they talk about higher level VGC. It's supposed to be like a Nash equilibrium or a matrix or some stupid shit. Like, oh, you only make that play a certain amount of time and shut up. Anyways, Adi's one of those people, by the way. Let's talk about the matchup against Grant. Oh yeah, so that matchup was tricky, but basically my opponent was switching in the Fari Giraffe when I expected it to, and not, and so like Fari Giraffe is a Pokemon you got to watch out for, but it's a Pokemon that is supposed to be a looming threat, and not just a I brought it in the first chance every time anything got scary, because then it just gets too predictable. Okay, so let's talk about the next one. Grant. Grant had two tricky things, which was the Ghost Drago. Didn't end up actually bringing it to the set, but look at that! Look at that Rock Ogre Audi.
Okay, yeah, got double kick.
It's got double kick. And Rock Ogre also is a Pokemon that Poundite does not want to see, because it resists extreme speed and has a built-in Focus Sash with Sturdy. Um, there
And
are some
defense
very
boost too
scary.
if it's Terras.
That's true. That's true. I guess I laugh because I think there was a defense boost Terra from it, but Sacred Sword just Okos them on if it comes down to it because it ignores the defense boost. Um, but no, it would definitely come into play. It again, if you're taking a significant number of extreme speeds on the Pokemon, it's also fast, so it can follow me, redirect the extreme speeds. I forgot to even mention Heatran's just here. Heatran's also an extreme speed resist. That doesn't feel very played right now, and so it was a Pokemon that I did not expect to fight against a lot. Um, However, I think I actually don't know how I overcame this match. I would say I do know what I ended up leading. It was just like Flutter Ogre and basically just soften up the board for Pound Knight back still, and it's just all about making valuable trades where like uh, my Flutter versus their Flutter. If I can, if I lose my Flutter the same turn that their Flutter goes down, I'm happy because now nothing is comfortably taking extreme speed. Let's keep going though. Um, and I'll put against Ale. I think my team matches up. Is that how you say their name? Ale? I thought so.
Mm.
Um, my team matches up very well into the Latias balance stuff. I do end up playing it once more in top 8, but there's a tricky new Pokemon that you have to watch out for in the rematch. This match did not have that Pokemon. I think I ended up losing a game because you can't get them all, but I did end up winning this set. And
This is the team
uh,
that we were trying to beat when we built this team, right? Like,
yeah, true. Because this is closest to like what there's either like the Tailwind Lando teams, or this is kind of like the continuation of stuff that Raga was doing at the end of Regulation DE, where it has King Gambit and Landorus, and those Pokemon don't like Pound Knight very much. King Gambit can take an extreme speed, but then Sacred Sword is going to do a lot of damage, and if it Terra Fairies, well, welcome back extreme speed. Please enter the stage. So let's talk about the matchup against Everett. This is another loss for me, my second and last loss of the tournament. My first chance at a win and in. Everett takes the first game, and a bit of it was a learning curve. I was hoping that the Iron Crown was not booster speed, but it was. The team has a very tricky mix of Trick Room and fast offense. And in the second game, I had a very critical timeout where I sucker punched the Iron Crown out of terrain, and I did not get it off in time. Lost. Even if I managed to take that second game, I think taking a third game would have been a stretch. This stuff is stuff that could pick up in popularity if you want to beat my team, but also, yeah, like, we have options to beat it. Snarlente, again, Ogre Pond can also do pretty alright here, but there's just a lot. You have to get a lot of turns right, and if one goes south, the game will just slip away, and you'll be too far behind to even come back. Um, let's see. And then the last round against another uncomfortable Pokemon. This is kind of why I like say that I think the team is retired. Is like there's just always somebody where I'm just like, why is it this Pokemon? Why do I have to face this? Why do I have to face this? And this time it's Glamora again. Nothing else is that difficult to overcome, but Glimora does resist extreme speed, does kind of threaten the whole team with Meteor Beam. Nothing can resist Rock, and so you have to play very perfectly into this Pokemon. And I think it was a 3 game set, but I managed to take it by just getting a number of turns right, taking out the Glimora at the right time. And that's all I'll say about that one, I think. Um, so we make it into the second day, and of course I play against Raga first. And Raghav and I play a very sweaty 3 games, where the last game comes down to my Pao staring down his Flutter Mane at -1 from Intimidate, and I'm like, I guess if I Ice Spin or crit, I win. And I Ice Spin or crit and win. Um, Very unfortunate for Raghav, and sad to do that to a friend in the first round. Against Ben, sorry, I said I wasn't going to do a full story, and I feel like I'm doing too much already, Adi, so I'm going to try to go even faster.
Sure, sure.
Um,
Hey, it's your team report. Do your thing.
right. Ben against Ben, I had a. I think the matchup was pretty favored, but I still managed to lose the first game, and then in the third game, Ben unfortunately on lead, uh, his Joy Cons just stopped working, and um, he like we call a judge, and he's like fidgeting with his Switch to try to get them to work again, and he manages to force a disconnect, which uh, unfortunately just disqualifies him for the round. He forfeited the match by doing that. And so didn't get to conclude the set. I think that this is the team that my team was targeting pretty heavily, though, and that I was probably going to be able to take the third game, assuming I didn't make any major mistakes. Um, if you want my take on the coolest team in the tournament that didn't make it the top 8, I really like Dylan's. Dylan's team here is Poundite, but with the Fire Giraffe and the Bear. Blood Moon seems like a Pokemon that it didn't perform as well as Ursaluna Regular that Audie was pointing out, but I think it's still a very scary Pokemon to deal with right now. And Fire Giraffe Trick Room with Blood Moon, but also the priority spam option, this time featuring Rillaboom as a priority spammer. It lets you do some really cool stuff on some very tricky modes to cover everything. And Dylan went Blood Moon against Game 1 and beat me, and then just didn't bring in Game 2 and 3. And I think if he did go back to the Blood Moon mode, he beats me. But something about the way that I was playing convinced him it wasn't the call, and I made some very aggressive plays to win the set. Okay. I'm trying to make sure there wasn't anything I missed in the chat. Somebody said, "Hey, I was your last round opponent. It was a great set. GG's." Oh yeah, great games. I'm assuming you're talking about day one. Yeah, it was. It was the Glamora was scaring me. Um, I really like Raghav's team. Raghav's team is nice. Raghav has the Metagross. I was wanting to bring Metagross to the tournament, but didn't end up. I think Metagross is still pretty solid. Um, People are saying that they think the current pace is good. All right, well, that's good to hear. We're getting to the later stages of the tournament anyway, so some of the matches I might spend a bit more time on. But let's talk about Joe. I mentioned it earlier, but Joe, we Burns had given me a good amount of coaching, and the whole set is on stream, so I don't really want to say anything about the game. You can watch it back. I do think that just watching VGC stream matches on 2x speed is a really good way to learn the game. Just go chew it all up, and you don't even have to watch any of the stream downtime now that the weekend's over. So you can probably learn a lot about how the matchup is supposed to be played from watching the game. However, the double sucker punch play, Adi, I think did you catch that one at all or no?
You double soccer punch incorrectly. I remember that. I don't remember exactly what the context was.
Yeah, no, I just didn't know if you saw the play or not, because it was just like a highlight of the weekend for me. Is I knew Joe was going to double sucker punch my Entei, and so I just went for extreme speed into the King Gambit and extreme speed with both my Entei and Dragonite to dodge the double sucker punch and the Terra Ghost on Chen Pao. And Joe just had a completely wasted turn, and it was just so sick. You have to make plays like that with the team, which might scare some people away from using it, but I think that it's I don't know. Do you remember that philosophy that Gavin used to always say about Jamie Voigt, Adi?
Yeah, Gavin always said that Jamie, Gavin's in chat too, but Jamie like is someone who like plays a million games and like literally will write down what people are most likely to do in different situations. And so therefore, even when it feels like it's a read, he's seen this exact same game state, 30, 40 times. Difference is he uses really weird teams, so it's almost guaranteed that his opponent's seeing it for the first time, right? But if you've seen the exact game state a few times, you have an idea of what people are more likely to do, and you can play the numbers a lot better.
Okay, cool. Adi mentioned the thing that I had applied to Emilio earlier, and not the thing that I remembered Gavin saying at all. So last time I asked Adi to remember a quote from Gavin.
Wait,
Um,
Gavin's
no, no,
in chat.
shut up,
Gavin, I
shut up. It's my turn. I know I've been doing all the talking. Back to it. Um, what I remember Gavin saying about Boy was that he would make reads that got him the most value. And so it was like he knew when to make a read that would win him the game, and um, that was the cool thing for me was just finding a play that was like, okay, if this goes exactly as I think it is going to go, then I won't have to worry for the rest of the game if I get this right. And finding high payoff plays is something that you can get a lot out of with a team that is just spamming strong priority. Um,
Yeah, just especially on a team like this, like you mentioned, a lot of priority, a lot of relatively frail mons that will go down if you don't take the KOs you expect to take, and a lot of times your opponent has the opportunity to protect one slot, and you have to call that right. And so you do have to call your attacks right a lot of the time, and I think that like you said, there's a few different ways to approach that, and getting the highest value out of your turn, saying I can afford to get this turn wrong, or this turn, if I get this right, wins me the game, are a couple different ways to approach it that are really strong.
hmm okay, so then I played against Jose in the last round, right after the stream game, and this is another team that I think was very targeted in our team building. We've talked about teams very similar to this from earlier in the run. There's no Tornadus here, but it doesn't really matter because whether or not it has a Tornadus, I'm just clicking moves that are priority boosted and faster than you. This is Speed Booster Flutter, which meant that it could live a single Shadow Ball or something. But as long as I managed to trade my Flutter for their Flutter, Dragon Knight cleans up the rest of the game. Um, Ryan Haig was my top 8 opponent, and I kept hearing it was Latias balanced, and I'm like, that's fine, that's chill, loving it, living the... Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. That guy is not allowed. Why are you here? Who invited you, Arcanine Hisui? That Pokemon was retired. That Pokemon was canceled when Incin and Entei came into the game, and yikes. So, every single game, Ryan led Arcanine Hisui and Ogerpon Wellspring. He led it all, quote, 4 games. It's important to mention that Ryan takes game 1, and then we go into leads on game 2, and I led Pow Knight. He led Arcanine and Ogerpon again, but his screen is black, and I get the disconnect message. He didn't even get to see my leads. And I inform Ryan, like, hey, by the way, there's no rule against same leads. And I personally, if same leads could be played with same backs, would be comfortable just going forward with that. But something that's always bothered me about people that gentlemen to same leads is that you could just change your 2 back Pokemon, knowing what your opponent has led now, to give yourself an advantage, and that is something I'm not comfortable accepting. And so I told Ryan, like, hey, I'm not going to agree to same leads. You can lead whatever you want. I'm going to lead whatever I want. It's a blank slate. And we cleared that with the judges and went forward. I ended up changing my leads in the second game and taking it. I got a Thunderbolt Para to make things a bit easier, though I might have been able to take it anyways. Ryan may disagree. And in the third game, I think it was... I did, Dane. Thank you for mentioning that. He had a black screen, and I did say, like, by the way, like, honor principle, I did lead Pow Knight, but I might not lead that again. But I did tell him, like, I led Dragonite Chinpia. I led Raging Bolt and Ogerpon in the second game, and then I think I went back to what my first game lead was, which was Ogerpon and Fluttermane, with Pow Knight back in the last game, and managed to just get enough calls right to win it in I think, a cleaner set for the third one, but the disconnect was unfortunate. But just in case people enter a similar situation, if your opponent ever um, tries to say like, yeah, we have to do the same leads. Like that's technically not in the rules. Don't listen to that. I've actually seen a top player agree to same leads and then just change it. Um, and I was like, that is just the scummiest thing. Um, and so just don't even like make any promises. Just play a new game. The last two were on stream, and so I can talk a bit about what was going through my head. But mostly, I think people should watch the stream sets if you want to know about how these games went down. And so against Anton, um, the Screamtail is a very scary Pokemon, and at any point it could disable my Dragonite, it could Encore any of my Protects, and so you can't get a turn wrong against this team. I think that's like something you have to be very careful of. You can, maybe make small mistakes, but if Screamtail ever comes in at the right time, you have to be very, very careful. Um, and so every single game, I was just trying to, play very aggressively in the driver's seat, and we kind of see that with me doubling Pokemon and getting all the double targets correct. This is another match where Colin played against Anton earlier in the tournament. Let me see. Colin played in round 13, and Anton managed to beat Colin, but Colin told me how he was playing the matchup, what Pokemon he was bringing. And so in the first game, I knew exactly what four he was going to bring. And then if I won the first one, I knew that he was going to adapt the other way. I think he went Drago mode game one, and then I was like, all right, we're going to see Goldie mode game two. Um, I did not expect the Drago Goldie mode game three, but things worked out. Um, and lastly, against Chuppa. Chuppa, I got to watch play against Colin on stream in top four. And this was the matchup that we were like most worried going into the weekend. Adi and I kept saying like, "What do we do against this matchup?" And then I was like, it was like Thursday night, and I was like, "Ah, we'll figure it out." And then Friday night, it was like, "All right, we'll figure it out." And then just never bothered, never got around to it. Um, but Justin thought up some good lines, and then Colin gave me the most help, which I think Colin had his top four set, which we kind of like 1-2 punched him. Colin conditioned him in a way where he was like spamming double protect a lot, Colin, and he told me that like if I actually never go for the double protects, that I might be able to throw him off. And I don't know. I mean, I'd have to ask Jumpa if that did throw him off or not. But I think there were some things that Colin did in his set that allowed me to play my final set against Chuppa differently and throw him off because nothing in the set was 100%. There was nothing ever 100%. Um, and yeah. Um, Let me clarify two things that I just wanted to mention. I guess I'll do them here in the team report. Not everyone's going to hear them if they don't watch this thing or whatever. But one, I remember reading the Twitch chat, people saying I didn't shake Anton's hand. I just didn't see Anton extend for a handshake. I don't know if he did or didn't. I watched back and I still am not sure. But if the person that loses the match doesn't want to do a handshake, I'll always respect it. And then two, against Chuppa, I crit Chuppa every single game, all three games. But I'm hoping everyone that's watching this is a high enough level of VGC player to know that Tatsugiri isn't going to live extreme speed plus sucker punch, even if the extreme speed goes for a crit. So the game one crit didn't matter. I hope people know that. Um, then something that starts to move up to the next level of like high level play is getting crits against Dondozo specifically. I crit Dondozo in both game 2 and 3. And Dondozo is a very strange Pokemon where you might be setting up a board. We've seen it, in the past year. You might be setting up a position where you KO the Dondozo and either get a KO or get significant damage onto the Tatsugiri in the same turn. In that second game, I went for an Ivy Cudgel that definitely would not have KO'd the Dondozo, but put it low enough that it would be in range of an Ice Spinner. And that means the following turn, I could Ice Spinner the Dondozo, get off a Horn Leech into the Tatsugiri. Maybe that doesn't Oko it, but my Ogerpon gets to heal significantly from a Horn Leech, and the Tatsugiri is now in range of a single Sucker Punch. I didn't get that opportunity because I crit the Dondozo. And so there's a lot of like the lowest level people, casual Pokemon fans that are just critical hit. Oh my god, Chuck was so unlucky. It was actually unlucky for me. Yeah, the commentators were good about it.
The
Go ahead.
commentators nailed it. No, I was gonna say they literally were so on top of it. They were like, "This is actually really bad for Alex," which is not something I ever expected to hear. But I was really impressed. The commentators caught that immediately.
Yeah. Len was on it. Len knew, and funnily enough, Len did say this. He in the third game was like, no, this crit definitely seems better for Alex. And while I do think the crit in game three on Dondozo was more likely good, I was also still potentially setting up another double KO situation. And yeah, no, Len does have a great understanding of the game, and Joe Brown is my favorite commentator, so it was a great duo to have cast the finals. Um, but yeah, the Dondozo obviously was a bit more healthy, but I moonblasted it from full. I don't remember exactly what HP it was at. It was at like 60, and it went down to. I mean, it just took like everything, but it probably would have been around 30, which I don't know. Maybe a Terra Normal Extreme Speed could have picked it up, and then I get the Moonblast on Tatsugiri. It's a similar situation where I would have liked to have had the opportunity to maybe get a double KO, but I didn't, and we ended up in that crazy endgame. I don't know. I've heard a number of people tell me it was like one of the most entertaining finals in a while, and I don't want to like toot my own horn, but I do think that was probably the one of the coolest endgames you could have is a new Pokemon with a new type of Sucker Punch against a Pokemon at 1 HP. Like what the heck, man?
Yeah, it was a really fun finals to watch. I still talk about a chat. I reacted. I was not done reacting to the oh shit you got the crit before Len started talking about why it was bad. Like I hadn't registered to me yet, so that was super impressive from his part. I thought that the crit on the Dozo was probably overall a pretty good thing. Game three, I think you said that in your post game interview too. But yeah, it was a really fun finals to watch, and it I think Nail said this. It makes a world difference when you don't have a whole day to prepare for the finals, or a whole night to prepare for cut or whatever. So just kind of figuring it out on the fly, and we saw some really cool adaptations. I think that I mentioned this on Tub Takes. You were leading Chen Pao, and that was not something that I had thought about the matchup a little bit. We had talked about it a little bit during day one because we both just faced Dozo, but maybe before we faced Dozo. I don't remember exactly when we talked about it, but lead Chen Pao was not something that we had really talked about, we had really considered, but it did a lot of work just because you got to keep your focus ash, and that was so important. So I think you did some really cool adaptations for that set, and you played it really well.
Yeah, shout outs to Colin for that. Colin carried me through that finals. He had played Chuppa twice, once in Day 2 Swiss and in that top four. So he knew what was like working and what wasn't. And it's very important to mention that nothing in that set was like guaranteed. Chuppa was playing random. I was playing random. I said that in my post game interview. But like, I do think that at a certain level, like you are just trying to play random for the sake of it, where it's just like, all right, well, if they get the turn exactly right, momentum could swing crazy. And so like we saw game one, I doubled the Glimora and just KO it because I'm just like, yeah, I would look really bad if I hit into a Spiky Shield or a Tot Switch. Cool, let's just double the Glimora. Like it's just very aggressive plays that if you get them wrong, this is the opposite of the Jamie Voigt ones I was talking about. These are the like, I could lose the game on this. Let's go for it. Nothing to lose. Back against the wall. Yeah, it was awesome.
There was one more play I wanted to talk about from that finals that really stood out to me because I was watching Colin's set, and so notably, Chuppa's Chen Pao was adamant, and we were max speed modest Fluttermane, so they speed tied, and we saw and also notably, remember we EV to live the Ice Spinner from Jolly Chen Pao 87% of the time, which is just the amount of EVs that we had remaining, which means that we live the Adamant Ice Spinner 32% of the time, I think, was what it was.
Yep.
And so in Colin's set, in I think what was the deciding game, Colin lost the speed tie, and Ice Spinner also KO'd the Fluttermane, which was kind of a double whammy because overall I think that he had like a 60-something% chance of getting that turn right, and he got it wrong. And then you in finals went for Sucker Punch into Chen Pao and then Dazzling Gleam, and you won the speed tie, which was such a crazy play to make. And I mean, it turned out as well as it could have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was, putting the game a bit on a speed tie. It's very fitting because I ran this exact same Flutter main spread at Milwaukee when I was in top four against James Evans, and I had lost the speed tie and the roll to lose game three of top four. And so it's a situation I've been in before. Um, Man, there was somebody who asked me on Twitter. I wanted to reply so badly. They were like, "Is it really a good idea for your Flutter main to be speed tying Qian Pao?" And I wanted to reply, "Is it a really good idea for Qian Pao to be speed tying my Flutter main?" Because, like, I don't know, I can't be special attack booster and timid to fit max speed, whereas like you can run Jolly Chen Pao. I ran Jolly Chen Pao. It's just kind of funny, but that turn was such a big swing, and um, obviously I had that go right for me, and then the critical hit happened too. Um, that's where if the Chen Pao had gotten off an attack before getting KO'd, the game state plays out completely differently. And so that unfortunately that was probably the most unlucky Chuppa got across the three games in my opinion. But chat doesn't know that. The Twitch chat doesn't know that.
Yeah, right. I mean, that really, I mean, like we talked about this in team building. The Flutterbane is so important for the Pow Knight matchup that, yeah, like the speed tie was always going to be very important in that set, and that's just gonna how it's gonna kind of go down. But
Hmm.
yeah, so I guess if there's any other questions in chat, that now's probably a good time to fire them off because I think we're just about wrapping up. We've talked about all the sets, and I can also pull up the rental code if you want to try out the team. Because just because Alex said he's retiring the team doesn't mean that you should, because obviously it did just win the major tournament, got top four as well. Very, very strong team. And so if you're looking for a team for Charlotte, maybe a team to beat for Charlotte, this is definitely something that you should try out. But yeah, Alex, any other
Hmm.
things that you want to talk about?
No, I don't think I have anything to mention. The team was very fun. I've been getting a lot of love, and so I gotta say that I really appreciate all the help. I did include in the bottom of my thing all the people I wanted to shout out for helping along the way. Um, yeah, so Chuppa helped a ton in the process. He was probably the person that helped the most. Um, and before ultimately switching to a different team and meeting me in finals, so crazy. Adi helped out a lot because he hopped in like around the first. I remember Adi. I
January
think I
1st.
included a screen.
Yeah, I
I
said
included
I,
Adi in the screenshot.
I said I was committing to a team January 1st, and I committed to the team January 1st and helped out after that. But yeah, I think
Yeah,
the team was mostly finalized at that point.
yeah. I like when people hop in earlier, but whatever, man. Colin actually, Colin and Chemo, package deal, classic, kickball team kind of thing. They hopped in like on Thursday. They had no team that they were liking, and I was like, well, guess what? Chuppa did just leave a vacancy in the team. Burns was also going to run it before he ended up deciding not to go. Jody was always in. He didn't help a lot. No shame to Jody, but he was like busy doing other things. He did help us test out the side spam matchup at some point though, which was very helpful. Sanvi was another Pow Knight believer that I was DMing some questions to and running things by. Helped a lot. Raghav helps just with about everything. Raghav is my goat. And yeah, of course, shout outs to Gina and Tub as well for just always supporting me. So those are the main shout outs I wanted to give.
Yeah. So again,
Uh,
rentals on screen. If you don't have anything else, I'm gonna fire off some questions that people have asked in chat.
yeah, let's do the one person asked the pace with EVs. I think we should have shown it, hopefully.
It's so here's it on screen. If you watch the YouTube video, it'll be in the description there if you want to click on it. I guess I can just link it here too if you want.
Yeah,
That
let's
makes it
just let's
easier.
do that.
I don't know. I want people to click on my YouTube video. Speaking of YouTube video, this will be up on YouTube if you missed any part of it, and so you can check it out tomorrow. Um, but yeah, so should should I run charcoal on my Flareon or my Magmortar? What do you think, Alex?
I would say probably on Magmortar because if you're putting charcoal on your Flareon, you're probably playing Gen 3, and that Pokemon's like a special attacker or something. Like it has no physical moves, so yeah, put it on the Magmortar for sure.
Uh,
Um,
Important question. So next, you said going forward, what are the changes that you? All right, I'll rephrase that. What are the changes that you would make moving forward with the team?
I think that like as a in general, I think the archetype could go in a lot of different directions. We've seen Pow Knight all year, and it doesn't exactly have to be shaped this way. And so I would probably be looking at different things. Raging Bolt is the most flexible slot. It helped in some key matchups, but maybe some change there could help into other matchups. I think some of the counterplay of the team is going to appear more often, like Psy Spam or Fari Giraffe, and so you're gonna have to come up with more clever ways to beat those consistently. I don't have the answers as how to like just patch those without spending. It took weeks to get here. It would take weeks to get there. So if you're trying to run this as Charlotte, definitely be playing games on the ladder. And if you're losing to those things, start to come up with ideas.
Um, let's see. What do you think the meta is going to look like moving forward? Any
I think a good number of people will take my team and run it, but I think that Chuppa's team is also a team that has a high floor and high ceiling. If you're proficient in Chuppa's obviously the best Dozo player in the game, but I think that a number of people probably don't respect Dozo enough, and it's a team that if you get enough practice with it, you could consistently day two with a team like that. Just learning what Pokemon to bring and what you can and can't do in every matchup. It's a team that's very strong, and so I think other than that, like in terms of like where the metagame's going, we'll probably still see stuff that we've been seeing, but maybe a couple other people do some more knee-jerk reaction Pokemon like Fari Giraffe or Indeedee just to counter team E-Speed spam winning the first tournament.
Oh, here's a good question.
Um,
So you got your Worlds invite now. Maybe a little earlier than you
True.
expected to. Are you planning on continuing to grinding events, or are you planning on taking a little bit of a break?
I get to join my good friend ESM Michael Zhang in trolling the rest of the season. It's awesome. I get to run the stupidest teams you could think of, but I mean, I don't play the game to just like throw tournaments away, so I'm still probably going to. It's so strange. Like it's such a strange situation to be put in, but I'm probably going to just play everything as I've done before. I don't know if I'm attending any extra tournaments. My next tournament would be Vancouver, and I don't think I'm attending up anything before Vancouver. We have the global challenge, so that's my next, mission. Is I'm gonna just start to think of something fun to run in the global challenge. Me and ESM are gonna get cooking, but if I'm going to an extra event because I got a significant amount of prize money, um, that it would probably just be EUIC London because that's just the most bang for my buck and would help me get a travel award to NAIC.
Yeah. So what do you think about previous regulation teams still being viable? We saw Riley's team do really well, for example, and then the Pokemon Ranger Emerald also brings up how, Gavin using Rain consistently over the course of Regulation D.
I think that there are like there's a lot of teams from the previous format that will do just fine now. People are talking about Joe, but look at Brandon's team in top eight as well. That is just all Pokemon that were legal in the previous format. It has I think two new tools. It has Stellar Terra Blast on Urshifu as well as Expanding Force on Hatterene. Some pretty significant changes, but I don't think there's any reason to hyper focus on the new. You just got to make sure you can still beat the new. You don't have to run anything particularly new, and so it's not something that I even think about when I'm approaching. Like, oh, can I use an old team? Can I not? I use what I want to use, and so if it happens to have no regulation E or F Pokemon, then it has no regulation F Pokemon.
Yeah. All right. And is Orthworm coming back? That's an important one.
Is Orthworm coming back, dude? Orthworm is good. I could have brought it to this tournament. I think the Pokemon is solid. Entei is a nice new partner for it to have. Then so, it really could. Riley going 9-0, 9-5 was a bit strange, honestly. Like, I gotta ask Riley what he was doing Saturday night. Like, did he just party too hard? Kind of crazy. Um,
But yeah,
the,
I don't think we're going to talk about other teams or other. I think we talked about a lot of the other teams on Top Takes and our thoughts on the metagame as a whole on Top Takes. So I don't think we're going to talk about any other individual teams. Sorry to the chatter who asked about that. But yeah, if there's no further questions, I think we might hand it off to Jody. But yeah, Alex, any final words or shout outs that you wanted to give? I guess you gave your shout outs already, but
I did. So, I think like I do want to emphasize the team does feel semi-retired. Like there were a number of Pokemon that made me uncomfortable every matchup. I was playing out of my mind. Like it's some of the most proud I've ever been about how I've played the game was just sticking to my gut and making calls. And so I don't know if you could do this again consistently. And so I think that you know user be warned. What is it though? What's is it? Your experience may vary, kind of thing. Like the team is very strong and it has a lot of good Pokemon, but people are already going to be able to just start fitting more counterplay onto the team. Having Flutter Mane and another annoying thing starts to get pretty troublesome. Also, thanks for stopping by, Chuppa. I see you in the chat.
all right. So with that, I guess I'm going to hand it over to Jody, who of course also used this team and is I think currently talking about his impressions of the Regulation F metagame after this regional has completed, and maybe going into Charlotte or going into the GCs or going into Liverpool. Is that the next one? So yeah, we're gonna hand it over to him. Tell him where you came from. Go solo. He's a great guy. And thank you all for tuning in. Congratulations, Alex, once again. And until next time, I'll see you all later.
Peace out, peeps.